Good morning, everyone. This is Michael O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for August 31st, 2019, recorded around 9:16 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hurricane Dorian is becoming better organized and more intense with winds of 145 miles per hour, closing in on Category 5 intensity. However, there is some shear that will be imparting on the storm and limiting it from intensifying much further throughout the day today. We've seen a pretty significant track in the overall track guidance tonight, or excuse me, not tonight, but last night and into the morning today. However, there's a large amount of uncertainty that remains, and we will touch on that here in just a minute. Dorian's official forecast from the National Hurricane Center at the 5 o'clock advisory, 5 a.m. this morning, has Dorian remaining offshore and tracking near South Carolina. So interest from the Florida East Coast to Georgia to South Carolina and even portions of North Carolina have to remain alert for this system. However, there's a large degree of uncertainty here. As you can see, the cone on the 3 days still goes into Florida, and even on the 5 day, much of Florida is still involved in this cone. And I also want to make note here, this is the wind radii from the hurricane. As Hurricane Dorian approaches, you notice this is the official track forecast right here. This is the official track forecast, and all of these circles are the wind radii. Mainly this circle right here is the 34 knot, or the beginning of tropical storm force winds, and you can see even on its closest approach to Florida, there will still be tropical storm force winds for the majority of the eastern peninsula here, the eastern peninsula and the eastern coast, based on this track from the 5 o'clock advisory. Now that is subject to change throughout the day, potentially more right or potentially more towards the left, back further to the west. There is a lot of steering factors competing on Dorian once it reaches into this area, as Dorian will start to slow down, potentially taking a turn more out to sea here and further towards the north, or potentially making it closer into Florida. And that is one of the things that the European model, the 6C European model, has suggested today. Michael Ventris, he's a fantastical person from the weather company and IBM, and you can see this is the ECMWF operational model for the 6C run, and Dorian is just offshore of Florida and moving on a track sort of like this, but then you can see the 6C GFS model, and the GFS model is further north and further away from the coast, and the European model is much closer towards the coast. These track guidances have started to really matter here, and we've started to see a significant shift, or not a significant shift, but a interesting shift in the European model that has shifted further back towards the south and west a little bit throughout the morning and the 6C run. So again, we're going to be closely monitoring. This is the 6C European model, much closer to Florida, bringing more potential impacts to Florida, and we're going to really have to continue to monitor the progress of Hurricane Dorian. Currently, the 12Z guidance from Hurricane Dorian does suggest that this will remain offshore of Florida. However, there is still a large amount of uncertainty. As we just showed, the European model is positioned more like about here, and the GFS model is positioned somewhere around in here. So a large discrepancy between these two positions right here, a large discrepancy. These are most notably on the on the eastern side of the Hurricane Center path, and on the western side of the consensus models here. Again, just because you see this turn away does not necessarily mean that Florida is going to be spared. Again, we could still easily see a shift further back towards the west later today, and some of the guidance is indicating that there is still, a large amount of not European, but The UK Met model and its ensembles have a larger spread into Florida, and the 6Z European was further towards the south and west than it was compared at the 18Z model, which had it yesterday, which had it roughly in this position. There's a large amount of discrepancy between what is actually going to transpire, and you can see this is from Simon Brewer. He was on the Storm Riders for the Weather Channel, and you can definitely see where we're going to be watching this ridge of high pressure and how much it weakens here over the coming days. You can also see what's going to be happening is Dorian is going to be encountering some westerly shear imparted from this area of high pressure out here. This area of high pressure is going to be imparting a little bit of westerly shear and northwesterly shear on Hurricane Dorian, and as Dorian approaches, it may actually weaken just a tad bit. It's still a very dangerous category 4 hurricane. The main concern right now is exactly how strong this ridging is and when does it break down. The upper level low right now is sitting at about here and is not controlling Dorian's track anymore. This ridge is almost unanimously now pushing Dorian towards the west here. And if we go to the visible loop here from tropicaltidbits.com, you can see how Dorian is just remaining shy really of that 26 north line there. And as that continues, we're going to have to watch for when that turn to the north occurs. This is the Bahamian Islands. Whoa. This is the Bahamian Islands out here, and Dorian is approaching, moving towards the west at about 12 to anywhere from 9 to 12 miles per hour, and you can see Dorian is just not moving all that much and could be undergoing a little bit of an eyewall replacement cycle right now. But again, there is some westerly shear being imparted on Hurricane Dorian at the moment, which is why there is more weight on the eastern side over here than on the western side of Hurricane Dorian. So the main takeaways is that we're going to really have to watch exactly where Dorian takes that turn. If we go back here, you can see some of the model guidance suggests that Dorian will take that turn further to the west, kind of sparing most of the Florida Peninsula. But again, I'm not necessarily sold on this idea. I'm not necessarily sold on the idea that Hurricane Dorian will just come out and take a path away from Florida. I just do not see that as a significant likely thing right now. However, we're going to have to watch the trends throughout the day. Then the next Hurricane Center update comes in at 11 o'clock, and we will really just have to see if they take into account the shift from the European model. The GFS model will start running, I believe, in here in just a little bit. I actually want to see if we can pull that up right now. If it is running, and it's not running currently, so we'll just have to kind of keep an eye on this. Recon is in Dorian right now, and we shall see. Actually, just got a new center pass, about 947, so maybe a little bit higher center pass here. The pressures might be starting to rise a little bit, and Dorian might begin to start weakening here, as the pocket of upper ocean heat content out here is not that high relative to what it was back through in Dorian's previous path. Again, Dorian is just barely hugging this 26 north line, and will be continuing to head off towards the west here over the next few hours. And you can see a little bit of a dip almost towards the west-southwest, and then kind of resuming that westerly path in some of these wobbles. So these wobbles are going to be starting to come in bigger and bigger play over the next few days. We have a lot to watch, a lot to talk about. I will be back with the 11 o'clock advisory when that comes out from the Hurricane Center. I should have roughly about 3 updates out today, including the 5 o'clock advisory for the 5 p.m. advisory package, and we shall see exactly how this evolves throughout the day. Hope you all have a safe rest of your afternoon and morning, and I will be back at 11 o'clock.